loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.
It's time for another conversation. Welcome to Making It Last podcast. I'm your host, Noreen Daly, and we're speaking about one of my favorite topics today, especially in recent times, because given all that's happening with this pandemic, I don't think people are paying enough attention to their mental health. So we're talking to Coz Green today, a mental health advocate. And I'm going to tell people, I am yet to meet this man in person, but I know eventually one of these days we will meet. Welcome, Coz, and thanks for joining me today.
Noreen, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me today.
So I just introduced and said you're a mental health advocate. Before I get into what we're going to be talking about, tell us a little bit about Coz. Who is Coz? And why is this topic so important to Coz?
Well, it really hits home because 11 years ago, this past June, I didn't attempt suicide once, not twice, but 3 times on the same day. The train didn't kill me. The overdose didn't kill me, and the asphyxiation didn't kill me. But through some hard work and a little miracle, I was able to make my way back from a very dark time of my life and have gone on to accomplish some great things.
Okay.
So that's why it's so personal to me, is because I've been there. I've walked through the darkness. I understand what it feels like to be alone and hopeless. And I don't want others to go through that experience. And you said in your introduction a very poignant thing, and that is right now, especially during the pandemic, when we're told to be socially distant, and we're cut off and we're isolated. And that's one of the worst things that you can do for a person. Think about it. The worst possible punishment that you can give someone when you put them in prison is solitary confinement.
Yeah.
But yet that's what we're doing to each other. And I understand COVID-19 and what we need to do to stay safe. But to be disconnected from other people, for most, can be one of the very most challenging and difficult experiences that one can have. We need that connection with other people.
That's true.
So
That's
by
true.
profession, I started out as a professional entertainer at the age of 13. By the age of 17, I was on radio for an ABC affiliate radio station. Over time, I worked as a news reporter, talk show host, and newscaster in the United States and Europe. And I've spent the last 25 years now as a speaker, trainer, coach, helping people from all walks of life. And just recently left the largest media company in the world. I had a national position there, and let's call it a happy retirement and moving on back to the things that I love.
Okay, good. So this show is all about helping people have better relationships, and in having better relationships, you have to have a strong sense of self. So what we're going to be talking about is how can one fight depression and remain mentally healthy?
Very good. Well, the first key is to realize this with all relationships, that we cannot give anything away we first don't possess within ourselves. So how is it that we can have happy, harmonious, loving relationships with anyone else in our life if we don't have a happy, healthy, harmonious relationship with ourselves? If we don't like ourselves, if we don't believe that we're enough, if we're unworthy, we're broken, then we're going to approach everyone in our life that way. And that's a very difficult way to approach all your relationships, that you're not enough, or you're broken, or there's something not quite right. So you need to take care of yourself. You need to come from a healthy position, and it's not selfish to take care of you. And there's so many things that go into mental health, because you can't separate the mind and the body, of course. So you've got to be healthy in mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. So you said earlier in your introduction that you went to a dark place and you actually tried to commit suicide. How did you get to that point, and then how have you gotten to where you are right now?
Well, it's difficult now in retrospect, 11 years later, to fully describe the perfect storm, but it was a perfect storm. If you can imagine, everything possible that could go wrong was, whether it was my relationships, finances, work, legal, tax, everything. It just seemed like it was the perfect storm. I wasn't feeling well physically. I gained a lot of weight, so I was emotionally eating. And so I reached out to a doctor and was looking for some help. And make a long story short, the doctor prescribed a cocktail of things for me to take to try to help me feel better, but it only made things worse. You know, that little disclaimer at the end of any TV commercial that says, these pills may cause suicidal thoughts or actions. Those are actually true. And there's a percentage of people that if you give them the wrong medications, it has an adverse reaction. I was one of those people. In fact, when I was in the hospital in the psych ward after I'd been come out of ICU, the doctor looked at me and said, and of course he knew the answer, it was kind of a rhetorical question, but he said, who in the world prescribed these meds for you? I'm surprised you didn't jump off a bridge 3 weeks ago. So many times we reach out for professional help, and unfortunately, there is not a one-size-fits-all. So when we talk about me advocating for mental health, it's also recognizing each individual. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Okay. So how did you fight all of that? And what people usually say is that they fight their demons. So how did you fight your demons to be able to be having this conversation right now?
Well, I think the real key is to identify that we do have demons. And I use a little different term now in the world of professional coaching, and that is that we literally do have demons or saboteurs that are within us. And perhaps the worst saboteur we have, the ringleader of them all, is our judge. And we have a very strong voice in our head that is the judge that says, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you know, you're not pretty enough, you're not tall enough, you're not smart enough. And we listen to that judge's voice all day, every day. And we've got to learn to be able to recognize we are not those voices. And we also have a saboteur, for instance, that's called the victim. Well, do you need to subscribe to the victim saboteur when they're continually yelling in your ear that you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim? Because then you're going to act like a victim, and then people are going to respond to you like a victim. So you've got to recognize these demons or these saboteurs, name them, and in a way, there's monsters in the closet, and you've got to be willing to open the door and meet those saboteurs, understand who they are and what they are, and bring them out, have a little party, and expose them to the light. And you know what? They're not very comfortable out in the light, and they want to go hide back in the closet where they can just whisper to you those terrible little things that they say. But you don't need to listen anymore. And the road back incorporated a lot of things from, again, focusing on my physical health. So I had to eat right, exercise, get in a good place physically. And then I really took time to understand being more mindful. Because when I was having those suicidal thoughts, I was living so far in the past, living with guilt and shame, which are the worst of all the negative emotions, or living too far into the future, stressing and worrying about things that were never going to happen. The key was to be mindful in the moment. They say if you're living too far in the past, you become senile. And if you're living too far in the future, you're living on someday I'll. You need to live in the present. Learn to be happy in the moment, not in the past. It's never going to happen again. And you're not going to control 99% of what happens in the future. So live in the now.
I know you've been enjoying the conversation, but we're going to take a little break and get a word from our sponsor. So the whole idea of a branding strategy sounded so exotic and so fancy to me. But after having several conversations with Neon, I now have a clearer understanding. I am sure of what my identity is, what it is that I want people to see Noreen Daly as. Thanks, Neon. Thanks, Splint. I have have a question. You spoke about the voice in our head and the whole idea of a victim mentality. I know there's somebody who will listen to this and they're saying, but this is me. This is how I've always been. Because we become like this because of different experiences or whatever it is. So how can you then say to somebody, say, oh, this is how I am. I listen to this voice. This is how I survive. I am the victim because of all of the things that have been thrusted upon me. How do we change that mindset? Well, either of them.
Well, I would have you look in the mirror and ask yourself, how well has that worked out for you so far? How is that serving you? Is being a victim serving you to your highest aim in life? I honestly believe that we are all here to live an extraordinary life, to experience that all life has to give us. And whether we grew up with a silver spoon in our mouth or not, that has not everything to do with it, right? People come from the most disadvantaged of situations and still rise above it. What is the difference between those who are, shall we say, fully functioning, adult, mature human beings versus the victims? It's responsibility.
Yeah.
And so there's been said that it's kind of a sliding scale from mental illness to mental health is the same sliding scale of irresponsibility to personal responsibility. If you look and see that everything is outside of your control, then you're not mentally fit because you are a victim and everything happens to you. As opposed to if you're mentally strong, then you get to choose how to react and respond to what happens to us. It's not what happens to us, it's how we choose to respond to what happens to us. They say in life, about 10% is what happens to us, but 90% is how we react and how we respond. You know, it's crazy with social media these days. How many people are offended by a tweet or a post, right? Eleanor Roosevelt once said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So you choose to be offended. You choose to feel bad. Somebody can say something totally neutral to you, and you can take it one way or another. You make that conscious choice. So I believe mental health is all about taking responsibility for your life, your mind, your body, and your spirit. No one can do it for you, and no one will do it for you. And I listened to your episode a couple of weeks ago when you had Eva Ford on there, and it kind of goes back to that whole expectation. I mean, what are you expecting? Are you expecting people to come to your rescue? Because if you're a victim, you really expect someone to come to your rescue. And if they don't come to your rescue, you feel cheated somehow. Look, life's not fair. And if it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to you. But you've got to live in the present. You've got to take care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit. Learn mindfulness. Learn meditation. Get in touch with who you really are and what you're capable of becoming. Because I'll tell you, you are capable of so much more than you even give yourself credit for.
Yeah. If there's somebody who has listened to the conversation and still a little bit skeptical or cynical right now, what is the one thing you'd want to say to them that of all that I've said, if you've gotten nothing else, this is the one idea that I want to resonate with you? What would that idea be?
That is, you've got to have a sliver of hope that tomorrow will be a brighter day, that you do not need to be stuck today between that hard place and a rock, but you've got to take action. You can't just sit there and wish for things to change or be different. I'll tell you, when I changed, everything else changed. I lost 200 pounds in a year. I got physically fit. I got mentally fit. I took responsibility for my life. I was able to get my dream job, travel the country, and make amazing things happen But at the end of the day, I had to take the responsibility and make better choices.
Mm-hmm.
We are where we are today because of the choices we have made. So be honest with yourself, be completely honest, and start making better choices. And those better choices start with making better choices as to which voices you're listening to. It doesn't mean you're schizophrenic because you have voices in your head. These are those saboteurs. But you can choose not to listen to them. Just like you can choose not to listen to a certain radio station or watch certain types of television programming. Turn it off. Turn off the negative programming in your life. And many times it's people in our life. Well, that means you may have to disassociate from certain people. But people like to feed their energy. And if it's negative victim energy, they like to be around people who are negative and victims.
Yes.
Raise your frequency and get around people who want and expect more out of life. So what can you do today? Get up, move, change your space, go outside, get in the sun, start moving yourself, changing your space, changing your mental as well as physical diet.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kaz. Looking forward to having another conversation with you pretty soon.
My pleasure, Noreen, an absolute pleasure.
This was Making It Last podcast. We're all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. Until next time.
Making it last is all I care to do. You loving me, I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.